Cake was already on the table when my sister called me into the hallway. She had that look, the one she gets when she's about to say something she's rehearsed 3 times in the mirror. Her hands were folded in front of her like she was about to deliver a verdict. "We need to talk about what you're planning to wear tomorrow." I already knew where this was going. I'm a firefighter. Have been for 8 years now. Engine Company 7, out of a small station in Clarksville, Tennessee. Before that, I did 2 years as an EMT, mostly night shifts, most of the kind of calls you don't talk about at dinner. I've pulled people out of cars on I-24. I've knocked down fires in houses where kids still had homework on the kitchen table. I've done CPR on a man in a Walmart parking lot until my arms gave out, and I kept going anyway. I don't say that to impress anyone. I say it because it matters to who I am. It's not a job I clock in and out of. It's the thing that gave me a direction when I had none. My name is Megan. I'm 31. I still wear my hair the same way I did at 23, pulled back, no fuss. My mother has been asking me to do something with it for most of my adult life. My sister, I'll call her Dana, is 4 years older than me, and she has always been the daughter my parents understood. She married her college boyfriend, teaches yoga on Saturdays, drives a white SUV, and coordinates everything in her life with a color-coded planner. I love her. I genuinely do. But there has always been a version of me she doesn't quite know what to do with. Our brother, Marcus, was getting married the next day. His fiancée, Claire, was lovely, genuinely lovely, the kind of person who remembers what you ordered at lunch 3 weeks ago and asks if you liked it. The wedding was at a historic inn outside of Nashville, the kind of place with string lights in the oak trees and a barn they'd converted into a reception hall. 200 guests. Formal dress code. I had planned to wear my department's dress uniform. Not my turnout gear. Not a costume. Our department's formal blue uniform, pressed shirt, badge, citation ribbon on the chest. The one we wear to funerals and ceremonies and graduation days at the fire academy. The one that means something. 6 months before the wedding, I had been awarded the Medal of Valor by the Tennessee Fire Chiefs Association. It was given to me for a structure fire on Riverside Drive, a 3-story apartment building, February, 2 in the morning. I won't go into the whole thing, but there were 2 children on the 3rd floor and the stairwell was gone. You do what you have to do. You don't think about it. You go. The Medal of Valor is not handed out often. In our state, fewer than 40 firefighters have received it in the last 2 decades. My captain cried at the ceremony. That's the only time I've ever seen him cry. I wanted to wear that ribbon to my brother's wedding. Not to show off. Because it was formal. Because it was who I am. Because after 8 years, that uniform is the closest thing I have to a suit of armor. Not the kind that protects you from fire, but the kind that says, "This is what I've built. This is what I've stand for." Dana didn't see it that way. "Mom and Dad think it might make people uncomfortable," she said, standing in the hallway outside the inn's dining room where the rehearsal dinner was wrapping up. I looked at her for a moment. "Uncomfortable," I repeated. "You know how it is. It's a wedding. People are dressed up. They want it to feel." She searched for the word. "Cohesive? Cohesive? Megan, don't do that thing where you repeat everything I say. I'm just making sure I understand." I kept my voice even. I've learned how to keep my voice even. I've learned how to keep my voice even. They think my dress uniform will make people uncomfortable at a formal event. It might feel out of place. It's formal attire, Dana. That's literally what it is. She exhaled through her nose. It's not just a uniform to people. It makes them think about emergencies. Danger. It changes the mood. I thought about that for a second. I genuinely tried to consider it from her side. But I kept arriving at the same place. You're asking me to hide what I do for a living. I'm asking you to be sensitive to the occasion. I pulled 2 kids out of a burning building in February, I said. I wasn't going to wear it to make a point. I was going to wear it because it's who I am, the same way Marcus will wear his tux because that's how he shows up for big moments. This is how I show up. She looked at the floor. Marcus is the one getting married. It's his day. I know whose day it is. Mom is really stressed. She doesn't want any, what, Dana? Any reminders that one of her kids does something that matters? That came out harder than I meant it. Dana flinched a little, and I felt bad for it. I'm sorry, I said. That wasn't fair. She nodded. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. Just think about it, she finally said. You could wear that blue dress you wore to Aunt Patricia's retirement party. You looked really pretty in that. She walked back into the dining room. I stayed in the hallway a little longer. I called my captain that night. His name is Roy Hendricks. He's been fighting fires for 26 years. He lost 2 fingers on his left hand to a flashover in 2009, and he never once made it sound like a dramatic story. He just adapted. That's what he does. I told him what Dana had said. He was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Yes, you do, he said. Or you wouldn't be calling me. He wasn't wrong. My parents are going to be upset, I said. Probably. Marcus might be uncomfortable. Maybe. Or maybe he won't care as much as everyone assumes he will. I stared at the ceiling of my hotel room. There was a small water stain near the light fixture shaped like a mitten. I worked for 8 years for that uniform, I said. I didn't do it to impress people. But I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist, because it's inconvenient. Roy made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. You were never very good at pretending, Megan. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. I thanked him and went to bed. I already knew what I was going to wear in the morning. My mother found me at breakfast. She was wearing her rehearsal day blouse, the cream one she saves for special occasions, and her expression was the careful kind, the kind that means she's been practicing what she's about to say. Dana told me she talked to you last night. She did. My mother sat down across from me. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I want you to know this isn't about your job. We're proud of what you do. You know that. Okay, I said. It's just, this is Marcus's day. Claire's family is very traditional. Her father was a judge. Her mother does charity work. These are very formal people, Megan. So am I said. I have a Medal of Valor, Mom. She nodded quickly, the way people do when they've heard a fact they don't know how to respond to. We know you do. But a uniform at a wedding. Doctors wear scrubs to the hospital. I don't wear my uniform to the grocery store. I wear it to ceremonies. This is a ceremony. It's a wedding. Same thing. She looked at me the way she used to look at me when I was 16 and she couldn't figure out how to reach me. Not angry. More like tired. Like she'd been trying to open a door for 20 years and couldn't find the right key. Your father would like you to reconsider, she said finally. I know. Will you? I folded my napkin and put it on the table. I'll see you at the ceremony, Mum. She didn't say anything else. I put on my uniform alone, in my hotel room, at 10:45 in the morning. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't deliberate. Every part of it was. I buttoned each button carefully. I pinned the badge on the left. I positioned the citation ribbon exactly where it belongs. Because placement means something. The Medal of Valor ribbon sits in a specific place for a reason. These details matter to the people who understand them. And they matter to me. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. I don't love mirrors. I never have. But standing there in that uniform, I didn't feel self-conscious. I felt like myself, like the version of myself that had crawled through smoke on her hands and knees because the visibility was zero and there were still people inside. Like the person who had shown up again and again to the worst moments in other people's lives and not flinched. You can take that away from a ceremony. You can make me fold it into a garment bag and hang it in a closet. But you cannot make it not true. I picked up my room key and walked out the door. The ceremony was beautiful. I'll give them that. The barn had been transformed into something out of a magazine. White florals, candlelight at noon somehow, gauze fabric draped from the rafters. Claire looked genuinely stunning. Marcus cried when she walked down the aisle, which I did not expect, and which made me like him more than I had in years. I sat in the third row on the groom's side. I felt the shift the moment I walked in. Not dramatic, not a gasp, just a subtle recalibration in the room, the way a flock of birds changes direction mid-air. People noticed me. Some looked away immediately. Some held the look a second longer. My mother, seated near the front, saw me and looked straight ahead. My father put his hand on her arm. I sat down. I smoothed the front of my shirt. I watched my brother get married. That part was real, and nothing about the uniform changed that. The reception was where it happened. It didn't happen the way I thought it would. I thought there would be avoidance, polite, practiced, the kind where people find reasons to refill their drinks whenever you approach. I thought my mother would pull me aside and say something. I thought Dana would give me a look across the room that communicated an entire argument without words. Some of that happened. I won't pretend it didn't. But about 40 minutes into the cocktail hour, a man approached me. He was in his late 60s, grey at the temples, wearing a dark suit with a kind of posture that doesn't come from posture exercises. He extended his hand. "I noticed your ribbon," he said. He wasn't talking about decoration. He knew exactly what he was looking at. "Medal of Valor," I said. "Tennessee, 2025. He nodded slowly. "Riverside Drive," he said. "February." I stared at him. "How did you know that?" "My son is on Engine Company 4. He was on the second alarm that night." He paused. He talked about that call for a month. I didn't know what to say. "Raymond Chu," he said. "Claire's uncle." We shook hands again somehow, even though we'd already shaken hands. Over the next hour, Raymond introduced me to 4 other guests he knew personally. A retired battalion chief from Memphis who'd driven up for the wedding. A former EMT who transitioned to nursing. A volunteer firefighter from a small department outside of Murfreesboro who'd worked with my station on a mutual aid call 2 years ago. By the time dinner was announced, there were 7 of us, standing in a loose cluster near the bar, talking about the things that firefighters talk about when they find each other in civilian spaces. The calls that stay with you, the ones that don't, the way certain smells never quite leave. I had stopped thinking about my uniform entirely. Then dinner started, and someone tapped a microphone. Marcus's best man gave a toast. Then Claire's maid of honor gave one. Then Claire's father stood up, the retired judge my mother had mentioned, traditional and formal. And he said something I wasn't prepared for. He said he'd heard there was a firefighter at the wedding tonight. The room went quiet in that way. Rooms do when something unexpected is being introduced and nobody's sure yet whether it's good or awkward. He said his son-in-law's family had a member who had been awarded Tennessee's Medal of Valor, and that he'd looked up what that meant before the reception because he didn't know, and that he thought people in the room should know too. He explained it plainly. Fewer than 40 recipients in 20 years. Reserved for acts of exceptional bravery involving significant risk to life. He read the criteria from memory. He was a judge. He was used to making things clear. "Service to others is the highest form of formal dress," he said. "I'm glad she wore it." He raised his glass. The room raised its glasses. And then Raymond stood up. And the battalion chief from Memphis stood up. The volunteer from Murfreesboro. The EMT turned nurse. The 4 others I'd been talking to. One by one, 7 people stood up, and then others joined them. Guests who didn't know me at all, who were just responding to the gravity of the moment, and then more, until I lost count. Marcus was looking at me from the head table. He was smiling in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. I didn't cry. I don't usually in front of people. But I looked at my hands in my lap for a moment, and I thought about February, and the stairs that weren't there anymore, and the weight of a 7-year-old who was too frightened to make a sound, and I let that be real for a second before I looked back up. My mother found me after dinner. She didn't say much. She touched the ribbon on my chest just once with 2 fingers. Gently, like she was reading something written in a language she was just learning. "You should have told me more," she said. "I know," I said. "About what it means, all of it." I nodded. "That goes both ways." She hugged me, which she doesn't do often, not in public, not without warning. She held on longer than usual. My father shook my hand. He's not a hugger, never has been. But he shook my hand the way you shake someone's hand when you mean it. Dana found me near the end of the night, when the band had switched from dinner music to something with a beat, and people were pulling each other onto the dance floor. "I was wrong," she said. Simply. No preamble. I appreciated that. Dana, when she decides to own something, doesn't dress it up. "I didn't understand what it represented," she said. "The ribbon. I thought it was just part of the uniform. I didn't know what you'd done. I don't talk about it much." "You should." She paused. "Or at least with us. We're your family, Megan." "I know. We should know these things about you." She was right. I'd kept a lot of it at arm's length from them for years. The job, the calls, the weight of it. Partly because I didn't want them to worry. Partly because I'd gotten used to being the family member they didn't quite know what to ask about. It was easier to stay in that lane than to fight my way out of it. But she was right. You don't get to be known if you don't show up as yourself. Marcus pulled me aside before he and Claire left for the night. He's taller than me now. I still find that slightly absurd, because I have 6 inches of height on him in my memory. He's 34. He's a project manager at a construction company. He volunteers on weekends at a food pantry. He is, honestly, a good person. We just got busy and lost the thread somewhere in our 20s. "I'm glad you didn't listen to us," he said. I laughed. "I wasn't sure you'd feel that way. Claire's dad came up to me before dinner. He said he looked you up, the fire on Riverside Drive." He shook his head. "Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want it to be a thing." "Megan, you saved 2 kids. My crew did. You went up when the stairs were gone." I didn't answer that. He hugged me the way he used to when we were small, arms too tight, like he was making sure I was actually there. "Thank you for coming," he said, "in the uniform. Thank you for getting married to someone whose dad is a decent human being." He laughed. "I'll tell him you said that. Please don't." I drove back to Clarksville the next morning. The drive was a little under an hour from Nashville, and I did most of it with the windows down. It was one of those April days where Tennessee can't decide if it's spring or summer yet. Warm enough for short sleeves, cool enough that the air still has a bite when you're moving through it. I thought about a lot of things on that drive. I thought about how easy it is to let the people who love you have an incomplete picture, not out of dishonesty, just out of habit, out of not wanting to make things complicated, out of being the family member who is hard to worry about from a distance, so you make yourself smaller to spare them. I thought about my Captain Roy and how he'd said "you already know" on the phone that night. He was right. I always knew. I just needed to hear someone say it back to me. I thought about Claire's father standing up at the microphone, a retired judge who'd looked up the medal criteria because he wanted to understand what he was in the presence of. There's something about that. The willingness to look it up, to learn, to let your understanding shift, that I want to carry around with me. I thought about the 7 people who stood up. You spend 8 years doing a job that most people don't think about until they need it. You don't do it for recognition. You do it because someone has to, and because you found out, relatively young, that you were someone who could. But those 7 people standing up in that converted barn, with the string lights and the oak trees and the last of the cocktail hour flowers wilting in their vases, that meant something I don't fully have words for. Not because I needed the validation, but because it was the truth, witnessed. I stopped at a gas station outside of Clarksville, got a coffee I didn't need, sat in the parking lot for a few minutes. A woman was struggling with her stroller near the door, toddler throwing a small, committed tantrum over something invisible to the adult world. She looked exhausted in the way that young parents look, exhausted, bone-tired and still managing to function because there's no alternative. I held the door open for her on my way back to the car. She looked at my uniform. I was still wearing it, hadn't changed, and then back at me. "Thank you," she said, in a way that had a little extra weight behind it. "Of course," I said. The toddler had moved on from the tantrum and was now very interested in a moth near the door. Kids are like that, so quick to shift. I drove the rest of the way home with the windows still down. There's a version of the story where I fold the uniform into the bag, wear the blue dress, and nobody at the wedding says a word. The cake is still good. Marcus and Claire still dance their first dance to the same song. Claire's father still gives a toast, probably about commitment or patience or the way love changes you over time. That version exists. I could have lived it. But I have spent enough of my life making myself smaller in rooms where I thought I didn't quite fit. I am 31 years old. I had been inside burning buildings more times than I can count without actually counting. I have held people's hands at moments that were the worst of their lives. I have shown up repeatedly to things that other people called impossible. I'm done folding that away for the comfort of people who haven't asked the right questions. You are allowed to take up the space your life has earned you. Not loudly. Not to make a point. Just honestly. Just as yourself. Service is not something you leave in a garment bag. It doesn't become less real because it's inconvenient. It doesn't become less worthy because the room isn't sure how to hold it. Show up as who you are. At the wedding, at the dinner table, at the parking lot door of a gas station outside of Clarksville, holding it open for a tired mother and a toddler who has just discovered a moth. Every time, all the time. That's the only version of this story I know how to tell. I've thought about that hallway a lot since the wedding. Dana standing there with her hands folded, rehearsed. My mother at the breakfast table, wrapping both palms around a coffee cup she wasn't really drinking. My father's hand going to her arm the moment he saw me walk in. All of it adds up to something, and I've been trying to figure out exactly what. Here's what I keep landing on. People don't ask the right questions about you until something forces them to. Not because they don't care, usually because they've already decided somewhere along the way who you are, and that picture is comfortable, and updating it takes effort. I was the daughter who was hard to reach. The sister who went in a direction nobody mapped out for her. The one who, when asked at Thanksgiving what her job was like, said, "It's fine," and changed the subject because it was easier than explaining what fine actually contained. I did that to myself as much as anyone did it to me. That's the part I had to sit with. There's a version of cause and effect that's easy to miss because it moves slowly. When you make yourself small for long enough, people stop expecting you to be large. When you don't explain what your work costs you, people assume it costs nothing. When you fold the uniform into the bag year after year, eventually the bag becomes the default, and the uniform becomes the thing that needs justifying. I had trained the people who loved me to see a smaller version of me, and then I was hurt when that's what they saw. Roy told me once, and I've never forgotten it, that the hardest part of this job isn't the fire, it's the re-entry. Going back into ordinary life after you've done something extraordinary, and having nobody in the room know the difference. He said the answer isn't to announce it. The answer is to just keep being exactly who you are, clearly without apology, and let the people who want to understand find their way to it. That's what wearing the uniform was. Not a statement, not a protest, just clarity. This is who I am. I'm not hiding it in a bag to make the table settings feel more cohesive. And what happened because of that clarity? Raymond walking over, the 7 people standing up. Claire's father at the microphone. None of that would have existed in the other version. Not because the universe rewarded me for being brave, but because honesty creates the conditions for real things to happen. You cannot be truly known while wearing a costume of someone else's comfort, and you cannot connect with people who only know the edited version of you. Megan, the Megan I'd been in that family for most of my adult life, was edited, quieter, easier to have at the table. The Megan who walked into that barn in her dress uniform with the Medal of Valor ribbon in exactly the right place was the one who had actually been there in February on the 3rd floor when the stairs were gone. Those two people can't exist in the same room forever. Eventually, you have to choose which one shows up. Intelligence isn't just knowing things, it's knowing yourself clearly enough to stop apologizing for what you've built. Integrity isn't just doing the right thing when it's easy. It's doing it when someone who loves you is asking you not to. And resilience, real resilience, isn't just surviving hard things. It's coming out the other side still recognizably yourself. I drove home with the windows down. That's the whole story.